Hello there!
Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy, watching all the Star Wars we can get our hands on. I'm Eli.
I'm Jacob.
This is episode 63 of Star Wars in a Galaxy. This is also the premiere of Season 8 of Star Wars in a Galaxy. That's right, we are on Season 8 of the show and Season 5 of Star Wars, The Clone Wars. And Jacob, tell me, where does Season 5 of Star Wars, The Clone Wars start?
Season 5 of Star Wars The Clone Wars starts with Revival and a Darth Maul, but that is not where we are starting. No, we have that saved for another time. We are starting with the Onderon quadrilogy. Famous for some, infamous for others, such as myself. So yeah, I think we have a lot to cover today.
Yeah, we do, and I'm very annoyed because you stole my joke, which is, I thought you were, I was so convinced you were going to go Onderon. I'm like, you're wrong, it's Revival, but we're not doing that today. Yeah.
I stole your thunder.
No, it's fine. We figured that Revival actually takes place around where the other ones do anyway. So, we're actually preserving the chronological order. We just decided, yeah. So, never fear, the chronological order is intact, even though we were doing 5-2, 5-3, 5-4, 5-5, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, I think 10, 11, 12, 13, 1, 14, 15, 16, which makes absolutely no sense. But welcome to Star Wars The Clone Wars, everybody.
I think The Clone Wars is hilarious because if you actually want to watch it in the in-universe chronological order, you got to do all this crazy machete order chopping and splicing between seasons and shuffling everything around to make 100%. It make sense.
I would also point out to you that this didn't end when Disney bought Star Wars, because I realized that they just randomly put the Martez Sisters arc before the Bad Batch arc of the Clone Wars, even though the Bad Batch arc of the Clone Wars was released before the Martez Sisters arc, just to mess with us.
Do we actually know that they take place?
Yes, it's listed on the official Star Wars website that the Martez Sisters arc takes place before the Bad Batch arc.
Wow.
Despite being released afterwards, it makes absolutely no sense.
Okay, that kind of disappoints me because there's no reason. There's like zero reason that it has to be that way. They just decided.
Decided.
Maybe they thought that the Bad Batch arc, or maybe they thought that it would be better for marketing if they had like a more hyped arc.
Yeah.
Coming in the beginning, I can only imagine they decided for that reason, because I really can't think of any other reason.
Yeah,
why they would do
that.
It's
so strange. Anyway, let's get down to the Onderon arc, which is a very interesting arc. I'll give you a little insight. For me, actually, this is one of my favorite arcs of the show.
All right.
No matter the criticisms I have, and I do narrow in on some criticisms I have of this arc, but only because I feel like to keep it like balanced and to keep it fair, I gotta put some things I'm not crazy about, but like they're really just nitpicks because I love the grand scheme of the arc. I love what it does. Yeah. You want to summarize War on Two Fronts?
A war on two fronts. So, Onderon has been taken over by the Separatists, with King Rash leading the droid army, who has deposed King Dendup. And, of course, Saw and Gerrera are, they're leading this rebellion, this insurgency on Onderon. And we start off with the Jedi having a debate in the council about whether or not to help the insurgency. And they're kind of arguing, is it terrorism? Is it legitimate? Eventually, they decide to go kind of train the rebels. This falls apart pretty quickly. There's a lot of fighting, a lot of training as well in this episode, and it kind of ends up just.
Wait, give me a second.
Eventually, the droids zero in. There's a lot of fighting. A little moment of triumph. The rebels they beat level 1 of the droids, so to speak. And it kind of ends off there, like not a huge cliffhanger, just kind of a moment of, okay, we're in this, we're taking the fight to the droids, and it kind of just smoothly segues into front runners, I would say.
Absolutely. A lot of this episode takes place outside of the outside of the main city. By the way, Jacob, just to pause for a second, do you remember what the main city of Onderon is called?
I think it should be pronounced Iziz based on the spelling, but everyone seems to call it ISIS.
Yes. This was before the rise of the terrorist group in our real world. But yeah, IZ is pronounced ISIS in this, so whenever we say ISIS, I guess you know what we're talking about.
I hope this doesn't get, automatically censored by the internet or something.
Really hope not either.
No,
but you know what? It's fine.
I don't think that's possible.
I don't think so.
But that is a little bit ironic.
It's so strange.
Given all the given the real world parallels this episode has with the United States government's habit of funding terrorist groups that eventually turn on them.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about that. And the Republic does turn into the Empire, and Saw does eventually fight against the Empire, and oh my god, this might have had allegorical.
This is a little bit too timely.
Yeah,
it's a little bit too timely.
Whoops.
I'd rather have been watching this last year, or the year before that, or the year before that. But it's all good.
We're good.
Let's get into it.
Anyway,
War on Two Fronts.
War on Two Fronts. Fortune cookie is fear is a malleable weapon.
What do you think about this one? I don't really have a lot to say here.
Well, I want to talk about this, and I'm going to be talking about this a lot during the episode. When you think of this arc, even though it takes place during the prequel trilogy era, you should not be thinking prequel trilogy. This arc, I'm going to argue, is the most original trilogy Clone Wars arc we get in the entire Clone Wars series.
Okay, what makes you say that?
Rebels against an empire. How many times do they call them rebels and their group a rebellion? They use original trilogy tonal music. The battle droid in this episode asks to see your identification. You don't need to see his identification. These aren't the droids you're looking for.
There are kind of a lot of references now that you mention it.
The parallels to the original trilogy are just shocking, honestly.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, and I like it because Saw ends up forming the partisans after the rise of the Empire, and he ends up influencing a lot of people, including Mothma, including Bail Organa, including all of those people who formed the Alliance to restore the Republic, later called the Rebel Alliance. So, in a weird way, who is responsible for the rebellion? That's right, Darth Vader. I know Ahsoka and Obi-Wan were there too, but it was Anakin's idea. Just saying, I think that's pretty cool.
That is pretty funny, especially considering that Anakin really was the one in the Jedi Council in this first scene pushing for some pretty questionable tactics.
Yeah.
I think this is honestly a good example of Anakin kind of slipping towards the dark side and moving more towards that mentality of I will do whatever it takes to defend that which I love and that which I cherish. That kind of gets him into hot water and eventually leads to his downfall in Revenge of the Sith. In this case, that which he loves being the Republic, the entire Republic, when he's like, oh, we're going to attack soft targets. He says, I don't like to think of it as terrorism. I like to think of it as an insurgency. And he insists it's not terrorism, even though he's advocating, obviously, for attacking, quote unquote, soft targets. And he just says that and his justification for that isn't personal so much as it is just, oh, the Republic, we need to get these systems back into the Republic's fold. And I think that's interesting because this is one of the one times that Anakin kind of doesn't go down the dark path because of a person. But in this, it really is his devotion to the Republic and the idea of the Republic.
This is an interesting arc with Anakin and the dark side because I feel like it's one of the only times where Anakin does the right thing for the wrong reasons. What
do you mean by that?
Well, I I think the idea of this insurgency is actually a good one. I disagree with the reasons that Anakin had to do it.
I kind of feel the opposite almost. I would almost say that it's the right reasons or the right justification for the wrong action.
I don't know. I just feel like, there's a lot of talk in this arc about the will of the people.
Yeah.
And the will of the people was not to be subjugated by the Separatists. And if you just pitch that to the council, then I could be more on board with it. But there's a line in that scene, as we'll get to, this could be a great new weapon for us. I'm like, no, Anakin, no, you're thinking about this wrong. Don't think about this as serving the Republic. Think about this as serving the people. It comes in line, at least in my opinion, with that scene from Attack of the Clones with Padme in the grassy fields. I think the people should, I think the leaders should sit down and discuss what's in the best interest of the people and then do it. Well, that's what we do. The problem is that not everybody can agree. Well, then they should be made to. Made to by who? By someone wise. Anakin is trying to use his idea of that they should be made to on an entire freaking planet. Now, I think the strategy itself and the idea itself is actually a good one. I just think he does it for the wrong reasons. But I want to hear your thoughts.
Okay, that's fair. I think I'm interested to talk more about the will of the people, because something that I noticed was that both, even if it's not said explicitly, both sides in this, both the insurgency, both King Dendup, and also King Rash and the separatist regime.
You can say the rebellion of the Empire. We'll be fine.
No, I that's not really what I mean, though. But I think they both sides really went in their arguments for why they're doing what they're doing, really lay claim to the will of the people. They're basically saying the people are on our side. Rash is like, oh, they're terrorists, they're criminals, they don't care about the safety of the people. The people are on our side. And then obviously the insurgents, the Gerreras, and their troops are saying, oh, well, we have to do this because it's the will of the people to be free. And what's interesting is that while it ultimately does kind of pan out that the people are more or less on the side of the insurgency, they end up attacking the battle droids. What's interesting is that it seems like that happens not as much just because the people are really with them or because the people really, really, really care. I mean, obviously they probably do care about their freedom. They do care about their freedom, let's say. They do. And yet they don't really show support for the rebellion, and they are scared by it in the beginning. And it's only because of these elaborately planned, almost publicity stunts that the rebels do, that they really claim the will of the people, by choosing to save King Dendup right when he's about to be executed so that everyone can see, even though it puts him in more danger, by putting up the giant holograms. You know what I mean? So I think that to say that one group has the will of the people, that's more of almost a rhetorical device, and I would say part of what grounds this episode in the real world. And when I think about this episode as referencing especially America's involvement in the Middle East, which I think it certainly is, even for the time when it was created, a little bit closer to the beginning of the Iraq War and the beginning of the American involvement in Afghanistan, the war on terror. I think that is, I'd say, I guess I interpreted the idea of the will of the people as something a bit more cynical.
Here's the thing, actually. Here's what it is. I think the insurgents actually do have the will of the people, but not for the reason that you may think they do. I think the insurgents have the will of the people simply because they are the people. Steela and Saw weren't like any high-ups in Onderonian politics, from what I could tell. They are the average people. They are the ordinary people. And they have, they're more in touch with what it's like to be an everyday Onderonian. However, the Separatists, if you look at the entire Separatist command, None of them are Onderonian. I don't think Rash is Onderonian.
There's that one general. There's that one general. Yeah,
Tandon.
that's it.
And by the way,
But
what happens to Tandon?
Yeah.
He goes to the people's side.
But listen. At the same time, the Gerreras are knowingly. They say like we're gonna strike, and then before the Separatists know it, we're gonna fade back into the crowd. They're knowingly using the Onderonian people as cover so that they can conduct warfare and then use civilians as their cover. So I think that while they do have the will of the people, I think that, especially given how scared the show takes pains to show that the Onderonian people are, especially in the beginning of this uprising, I think the point to me was that the will of the people isn't just something that you have or don't have magically, that they really had to work to get the people on their side. And I think they did so through kind of insincere means.
Okay. And that's an interesting opinion. I don't think I've ever thought about it that way, it's an interesting idea. I don't necessarily agree with you, but I can see how you think that.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I get what you're saying.
Yeah. But let's see what else. So yeah, by the way, so the Jedi Council in this beginning scene boggles me to confusing extents. There's so many things they say that just blow my mind with how crazy they are. Obi-Wan, how we conduct war is what distinguishes us from others, says the man who faked his own death in order to stop the assassination of a political leader, an event that he totally did not have to go to. Funding rebels to overthrow a legitimate government puts innocent lives at risk, says the man who purposefully left innocent people in slavery on the planet Tatooine because there was this really special boy they needed to get.
Okay.
Obi-Wan drops the ball in this arc.
To the point to the first point, I don't think that there's a comparison between faking your own death and knowingly putting civilian lives in danger. I don't really think that it's right to accuse Obi-Wan as I interpret your comparison of hypocrisy, given the complete difference of the two scenarios.
Yeah, that actually, I realized how weird that was when I was saying it. Here's a better one. How we conduct war is what distinguishes us from others, says the order that fought one of the biggest battles of the war and developed one of the biggest weapons that they ever used in said war, not to defend a population, but to defend said population's resources.
What are you referring to?
Zillo Beast.
Yeah.
Battle of Malastare.
How we conduct war.
How do you conduct war, Jedi?
I think that that's interesting, but I think that ultimately you have to be able to distinguish between the Jedi Order and the Republic. The Jedi Order, they didn't give the order to drop the bomb. That was all Chancellor Palpatine. It was Chancellor Palpatine who was invested in getting those resources, and the Jedi were ultimately his pawns in that. And it was kind of Anakin. He was doing that. So I also have to disagree on that front. Although I do think it's a good point. I think that
I can't believe it. I'm making the point about the Jedi losing their way.
I know.
And Jacob is disagreeing.
This is hilarious. This is hilarious. But I don't know. I don't really get... I guess I just don't really get where you're coming from on this one, because I think that Obi-Wan... Like, I do think that the high road is kind of... While it's kind of a dangerous path, and I think it's very... And this arc is honestly a prime example of what's dangerous about the Jedi at this time, where they're too self-assured in their own moral high ground.
In their own moral what?
No pun intended. I was gonna say no pun intended.
It's over, Anakin.
but I think that because I think that there is in that a lot of complacency and arrogance in kind of just... I think there's two ways to interpret it, which is that I think it's both a good and a bad thing that he says that. It's a bad thing because it just kind of assumes that the Jedi are like morally good and that they don't really have work to do.
And they can never make a mistake.
Yeah, or that they don't make mistakes, or that they haven't made mistakes. On the other hand, it is a very important reminder, and it's really something that Anakin forgets. Because at a certain point, it's like, Anakin's like, oh, I'm fighting for the Republic because... What would Anakin say if he says why he's fighting for the Republic? It's more humane. The Republic is it treats people better probably than the Separatists. Separatists are brutal.
We have people
they're
fighting
murderers.
in our army. They have machines fighting in their army.
Yeah. They're brutal. They're murderers. They have machines. But then at a certain point, Anakin stops demonstrating the values that he is fighting for. And at that point, then what are you fighting for?
Absolutely.
Like if the like I think
it's the I'm going to.
Then you're just fighting for power.
Yeah.
And the Jedi, I think that's ultimately the problem with the Jedi is that they end up just fighting for or with Anakin, I think Anakin's problem is that he ends up fighting for power and doing and by doing whatever he uses like whatever means necessary pretty much in the end. Like by the end of the Clone Wars, he's like, oh, gotta save the Republic, gotta fight for the Republic's victory by any means necessary.
Yeah.
Which is what lowers him to the dark side in the end. Which I think is pretty self-explanatory.
With the quote I use not frequently at all, this is the first time Jacob's heard me use this quote. In this war, a danger there is of losing who we are.
Yeah, this is I think this arc is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. I want to go on a little tangent about Onderon very quickly because I find this interesting. So Onderon, did you know that it was is a Legends planet?
Yes.
Do you know the extra bit of lore it had in Legends?
Probably don't know what you're referring to.
So there was actually a lot of Sith activities in the planet in the days of the Old Republic. I really wish they kept that. I really wish we could have seen a little bit of a darker side of the planet. They got everything else right. They got everything else right. But they decided to scrap the Sith. It's not like a dark side planet, but Sith came there and Sith did bad things there in Legends.
Yeah. What do you think the implications of that are in the story? Like, do you think that they brought Onderon back in this way, kind of knowing that it has that pedigree?
Oh no,
in Legends?
I think they just took a planet. Honestly, I think they just took a planet from Legends. They're like, oh, we can do a jungle planet. That would be cool. And they're like, oh, we can't really work the Sith thing into the arc. Oh well.
Yeah.
I would have loved them too, but that's just a minor nitpick.
Yeah. I mean, basically, this whole episode is kind of from here on out. There's the training portion and then the fighting portion.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the meeting of when they meet the Stila and Saw and re-meet Lux, I think it's one of the best parts of this arc, actually. And not the arc, but the episode. I mean the episode. So let's talk about the way the Republic, the Scouts find Anakin and Ahsoka and Rex and Obi-Wan. With that very undercover stealth, like, does this remind you of anything? Because it reminds me of the Partisans. Because what I realized a lot when watching this arc, and I forgot about this part of it, we see Saw Gerrera for the first time in this arc, and he was a minor character in this arc. Like, he was a minor character in Star Wars and Legends, but now in the expanded canon, he has become one of the biggest characters that hops across canon whenever he feels like it. I think he's a
canon hopper.
He's a canon. I think he has been in every medium of Star Wars. Live action movie, with Rogue One. Animated TV show with live action TV show. I think he's gonna be in Andor. Animated TV show with the Clone Wars, the Bad Batch, and Rebels.
Wow, he's been in. Wait, when was he in the Bad Batch?
The first episode and the third episode. Remember when they go to hunt down his partisans and they
oh right, yeah. Oh gosh,
they realize they're like.
I got it confused with season 7 of the Clone Wars.
Yeah. And video games. Fallen Order. He's in Fallen Order. And he's in books, and I'll mention an appearance of his in a book a little later, which I'm a little annoyed about, but like you'll see what my major annoyance is, and they're comic adaptations of Rogue One, so that's 5 of 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's prolific.
But one of the things I was going to say about Saw that's really interesting is that I forgot how little he changed from now to, say, Rogue One.
Yeah, he really does not.
Like, I remember he made a little bit of character development, and he did. And that's one of the things that sucks about this arc, actually, the most for me, is that knowing he made that character development, and knowing that it crashes down as fast as that HMP gunship that crashes down and kills his sister at the end of the arc.
Oh, that's brutal.
Am I wrong, though?
Man.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not.
He becomes more delusional than ever. And the funny thing is, I think he is a little bit... He does a lot of the same techniques that he does in Rogue One 20 years later, and yet he's the one who, in the Bad Batch premiere, tells the Bad Batch about adapting with the future or dying with the past when he's basically been using the same playbook for 20 years. Who's adapting now, Saw?
Yeah. I would agree, actually. It's an interesting point.
I just find it funny that Saw Gerrera is a fascinating character to me, and one of the reasons is that he has this very Sisyphean struggle, like the Maul struggle.
Yeah.
That's Saw's struggle. That he keeps pushing this rebellion boulder over the hill, and he never quite pushes it up because he doesn't realize that his methods are just kind of ridiculous sometimes.
Yeah. He just alienates everyone.
Oh, yeah.
But I think in some ways, his methods do change a little bit in terms of they get more extreme. I think kind of his sister dying pushes him over the edge in a way.
Yeah.
That kind of sends him on a loop.
Yeah. I think his sister is actually the only thing physically stopping him from... Like not even metaphorically, physically stopping him. I think the only reason he doesn't do more extreme things is because his sister has to say no.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of his sister, she's my favorite character in this arc. By far. She's one of my favorite characters in the Clone Wars, period. I gotta admit to you, I watched her death scene again this morning with that 4th episode, and it hurt as much as the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
I'm never really gonna get over that one. Her death hit me in a way not a lot of other Star Wars deaths have.
Why do you think that is? For a character that we don't really
I think
get
she
that much
was developed very well in the arc. I think she had a very good arc of becoming a leader and coming into her own and being the badass that she is. I saw all of the potential that came with her character, and I just saw it crash down to the ground when she died.
Do you think maybe, would you say that it was a mistake to kill her off? Or to not at least give her more time?
I think they could have. I understand the choice they make, and I think I appreciate it for the arc. It's one of those things where it's like, I'd say the same thing with Luke's death in The Last Jedi to a much lesser degree, which is that I didn't want Luke to die, but I understood why they made the decision when they did. And that was Steela. I think Steela dying is terrible, but I understand why they felt like they had to do that. I personally disagree with that, but I understand how it works in the story, and I'm fine with how it works in the story.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, can we talk about Steela's kind of rivalry, I guess, with Ahsoka in this episode? Because that is both bewildering and hilarious to me. Like, Ahsoka and Steela meet, and immediately Steela is just needlessly aggressive and snarky to Ahsoka, and it almost seems like the show's kind of hinting that they're maybe kind of fighting over Lux a little bit. What do you think about that?
I think it's an interesting rivalry. I actually think the more interesting rivalry is Lux and Saw, which is a little bit more clearly defined. But I think Ahsoka's entire role in this arc is a really strange one. What is that mantra that she constantly has to live by in this arc? Anakin says it to her over and over and over again.
I can't remember.
Purpose must come before feelings. Purpose must come before feelings.
Yeah.
Which, we'll get into why that makes Anakin like such a freaking hypocrite later, but needless to say, if Anakin had to perform a mission that involved Padme and somebody told him purpose must come before feelings, imagine how quickly he'd fly off the handle.
Yeah.
Which is pretty funny that he does it to Ahsoka, just completely deadpan. You know, I think Ahsoka and Steela's situation is interesting because Ahsoka clearly admires Steela. And I think they both, after Steela sees the kind of person Ahsoka is, I think they both like each other. But I think they're both suspicious of each other around Lux. It's a really fascinating relationship that's never really... It's sort of hinted at subtly. It of course gets wrapped up in that final episode, which is one of the most wholesome moments in the entire Clone Wars. After they kiss, Steela and Lux, and Lux gets on that mount with Ahsoka, and she punches him on the arm, which is one of the most...
There's so much arm punching in this episode.
I love this. This arc is a really interesting situation for me because, you know, it's an interesting twist on a classic Clone Wars trope. You know, we have episodes, bounty hunters, defenders of peace on the wings of Kyridex. We see the Republic training people to fight for themselves. The funny thing is, these people already know how to fight.
Yeah.
So this is teaching them how to fight better and teaching how to wage war. Which I find it interesting that's it. And like, also, they're starting from a different place. They're also ending in a different place because their goal is not just to defend themselves. Their goal is to retake their planet.
Yeah.
Anything else with the training portion, or do you want me to rant about Inusagi?
I want to hear your rant. Let's go for it.
Okay, Inusagi. So this is something from the book Rebel Rising. Basically, Saw is infiltrating, during the time of the Empire, a imperial ceremony of some kind on the planet of Inusagi.
Okay.
And Jyn Erso's there with him when she's a young kid and she's working for him. And she has the role, and she has some stuff that she's not supposed to see, but of course sees it because the story needs her to. But basically what Saw does is there's a bunch of Imperials there. There's also just a bunch of civilians attending the ceremony. And his people, and his partisans use these flechette launchers.
Oh.
They're basically just tiny little blades.
Yep.
And on the crowd. And they shred Imperials and civilians alike to bits.
That does sound like Saw.
The Inusagi Massacre. So anytime I mentioned, hey, what would X characters think about Inusagi? You know, what would Steela think about Inusagi? What would X characters say about Inusagi? That's what I'm talking about. And it to me symbolizes how far Saw fell after his sister died. Because Steela would never think about doing anything like Inusagi on Onderon.
Yeah, definitely not. She, no way.
No way.
No way, no how.
But Saw does it like he just does it.
I think Saw kind of has the exact opposite outlook from Obi-Wan, actually. You know, where Obi-Wan says, help me remember. I can't remember what's the exact quote. Like, how we conduct warfare is what differentiates us from our enemies, or something like that.
Distinguishes us from others.
Distinguishes us from others. Saw would probably say, no, what distinguishes us from our enemies is what we believe in and what our goals are. And the only thing that we're distinguished by in the way we conduct warfare is whether we win or lose. And and that's kind of his whole MO, and that's basically his purpose when he pops up in Rebels, is he challenges he challenges Mon Mothma, and he challenges Ezra morally in that way as well.
Absolutely. There's a line that I think it's Obi-Wan, maybe Ahsoka says to Steela, "Be mindful of your frustration. It will only hold you back." I'm like, thank you, finally saying something good. Where are these Jedi? Where are the practical Jedi? Not the high on the pedestal Jedi. Where are the practical Jedi?
Yeah, I mean, it is a little weird to me. Yeah, right before the action begins, but in this, to me, kind of strange, long, drawn-out sequence where they're all just kind of throwing balls and being rivals with one another. Steela gets so pissed off that she leaves because she can't, throw a grenade she can't throw a grenade slow enough after, 5 tries. That part kind of confuses me.
It was a little strange, I will admit that, definitely. Yeah, it's the training sequence is actually, I like it a lot, but there is some interesting stuff in there. Also, let's talk about how Ahsoka just gets slapped down a bunch in this episode. Obi-Wan to Steela, "You have clearly mastered your ability to focus." Anakin to Ahsoka right afterwards, "Snips, are you losing focus?"
Yeah, she kind of gets the real short end of the stick.
Yeah.
In this episode for no good reason, really. I feel like she's the one she's the one person in this episode. She's one of the only main characters in the episode who isn't completely wilding out.
Absolutely. No, Ahsoka is doing what she needs to. This is an arc I feel like, we'll see Ahsoka's disillusionment with the Jedi very soon. And I think this is one of the arc that sets the stages of that, actually. Because Anakin and Ahsoka, not intentionally, but by the code, Obi-Wan and Anakin clearly care about her. And I would go as far as to say they love her, but they say things to her that if they really slowed down, if Anakin ever said them to Padme, if Obi-Wan ever said them to Satine, if they ever thought about saying them to Padme or Satine, they would slow themselves down. But because it's another Jedi.
Yeah, I think the problem is that I think we also see this a bit with Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship.
Oh, 100%.
We also see this problem there, which is that tough love. Obviously the Jedi are very big on tough love, the way they, of course, they're supposed to have no attachments. A lot of times you see the tough love, but the thing is, I think tough love only goes so far if that's not also balanced out with
actual
genuine displays. I think tough love is a form of care, but I think if you don't also balance it out with displays of warmth and tenderness, and doesn't not necessarily tenderness, with the Jedi necessarily, but warmth and kindness and directly appreciating someone. There's only so far that can go. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons that Ahsoka, in my mind, ends up leaving the Jedi Order. Obviously, it's not the main one.
Oh, absolutely.
But, they don't even, really... the Jedi Order doesn't even really apologize. They're just the Force works in mysterious ways. This was all a test.
Too bad. So sad.
Yeah, too bad, so sad. Too bad, stay mad.
Stay mad, bro.
Yeah. It's dang.
Yeah.
Okay, we're fully off track now.
But I want to just do this one. I just love this. We gotta get some battle droid humor, right?
Oh yeah, of course.
What is that? It looks like an explosive. How can you...
That's the funny thing also is that not even like a full episode in, not even 10 screen time minutes, 10, 15 minutes on the screen after Anakin justified helping the Onderonian revolution by saying, oh, we won't use weapons that have collateral damage, it'll just be like droid poppers and stuff. They are chucking bombs. They're chucking bombs.
And then it gets to the point in the 4th episode where Hondo's just giving them missiles.
Yeah. Bro, Hondo. Of course he's in this. Yeah.
Like they're like, these things will only harm droids, and the ballistic missiles go in the back.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hilarious, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Front runners. The rebels have entered the city. They are causing mischief and chaos at every turn. They're going around. King's getting upset. King's getting pissed off. Royal carriage gets attacked. Eventually, they decide to knock out the power station. Gosh, wait, help me out here. Like, when does this end and tipping points begins?
Soft War is the next one, but
Soft War. Sorry, yeah.
No, it's good. It's good. This ends with them blowing up the power station.
Yeah. Okay.
Them anointing Steel as leader.
Oh yeah. All right. So yeah, it ends. They anoint Steel as leader. Again, not really a very distinctive end point. Just kind of another segment.
Absolutely.
Of this story.
The fortune cookie is to seek something, is to believe in its possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I don't really know what to say about this one. It's not. I feel like not giving us a lot to work with here.
I don't know. I feel like this points a lot to a lot of Anakin and Obi-Wan's hesitancy about this experiment. Where Anakin, at least Obi-Wan's hesitancy, where Anakin is kind of the good angel and Obi-Wan is kind of the bad angel. The bad angel. The devil. Damn it. The bad angel. Nice job, good job.
That sounds like the name of like a sitcom.
The bad angel. It's the Good Place.
Yeah, you've heard of The Good Place. Now get ready for The Bad Angel. Bro, imagine.
But like I feel like it's a lot about that experiment of this whole test case of Onderon and if this strategy can work and whether the faith in it impacts whether it works or not. They start off with some attacks around the city, and then we pan up to the palace, where we meet maybe the worst character in this arc, King Sanjay Rash. Did you realize his first name was Sanjay?
I knew that detail eluded me when I was preparing for this.
So perfect. So incredibly perfect.
I do want to say I apologize to anyone who is named Sanjay because it is a rough character to share a name with.
Oh, However, or anybody unfortunate enough to be named Saw.
One things I like about this arc is that he's named Rash. That's hilarious to me. I like it when Star Wars does these super literal names, like Han Solo. I liked it a little bit before the Solo movie.
Wait for it.
That scene.
Rise. Savage Opress.
Yeah, Savage Opress. That's a classic example. King Rash,
Luminar Unduli.
Yeah. Look, is he called Rash because he acts rashly, or is he called Rash because his presence is like a rash on Onderon? Either way, it's hilarious, and I can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
By the way, so I want to ask you something.
Yeah.
Who's that random aide, the servant that Rash has through the entire arc that maybe says a few words and is with him in like every scene? Why is that guy there? There's literally no reason. Is it because when he needs to talk to somebody to not seem like a creepy monologue style villain? Because that's literally the only conclusion I can draw from that random guy being there the entire time.
You're right. Rash does have a lot of moments that are verging on like it's pretty much verging on like Shakespearean style monologue where he's just standing there talking at no one in particular.
It's funny
I guess technically that would be a soliloquy, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny that you mentioned that because the crown on Rash's head is inspired by ancient Greece.
Yeah.
There are many ancient influences, apparently. Yeah, Rash like does seem like a very Shakespearean character. He's also, by the way, just an asshole. What is it? By the way, what is his obsession? I would almost call it, what is his fetish with fruit? I don't understand.
I think it's kind of a symbol of that. I think it's kind of a symbol of the power and the decadence, you know, the way he just eats fruit. He's just like eating fruit, tossing fruit into the fire.
Tossing the fruit into the fire.
He takes like one bite out of the fruit and then tosses it. Like, I don't know.
And then he does the thing in the next episode where he takes where he takes the bite of the fruit and then puts it through the execution chamber, which is what happens to somebody's head when you cut it off.
I mean, I think it is kind of a clever way. Maybe it's kind of a simple way to kind of convey something about the kind of decadent, kind of high and mighty ruler he is, because you kind of associate. I don't know. You just kind of associate that with this kind of laid back, Roman rulers, especially for like the biblical sense of like the Romans and stuff. But I don't know, maybe I'm reading into it too much, but he is obsessed with fruit, especially in Star Wars, where most of the time we just see the characters when they eating like weird little gray squares. Maybe fruit's like a big luxury in Star Wars.
Yeah, maybe that's why it was such a big deal.
Maybe you gotta be super powerful to get some fruit.
Yeah, maybe that was why it was such a big deal when Padme and Anakin were doing fruit
catching
clones.
Yeah. Maybe Anakin was like, I'm from Tatooine, this is the first time I've ever had fruit.
Or even better, I'm from Tatooine. We never got shit like this on this planet. But I'm with a senator from a high-class planet like Naboo. I can do whatever the fuck I want.
Yeah.
Because I can. So... Saw continues to confuse me with everything that he says. And he does. Also that he does. He just doesn't think while doing things. You know? It's crazy how much Saw just like acts in this arc and just doesn't think about stuff. Of course, the obvious example is when he just goes off to free King Dendup from the prison, but ends up like just royally screwing up. Like we all knew he would, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm very mad at Saw in this arc, actually. Let's see, what else do you got for this?
I honestly don't have a lot to say about any of these episodes, I'm gonna be honest. They did not do it for me.
Oh, that's interesting.
So
also, here's
the floor is kind of your I will.
Here's a fun.
You can bounce ideas off me, but
here's
I think
a funny one.
Yours.
This is a weird thing I've noticed. Why? This is a monetary thing I've been noticing. Double part question, both from this episode and from tipping points. Number one, why don't the Separatists just make all of their B2 super battle droids rocket super battle droids? A. And
probably
B,
too expensive.
Exactly, I'm gonna get back to that. B. Why don't they just make all of their ships ray shielded like the HMP gunships, which you will say too expensive. To which I say to you, they don't seem to give like two shits about cost of anything. Like there's that one line from the Malevolent Arc Grievous, these battle droids are expensive. I understand that exists, but like, how many droids do we see in the series? How many Octoptaras? How many Droidicas? How many AATs? How many MTTs?
I think those two things can coexist and kind of have to. Like,
also, they're spending literal banks.
They're spending astronomical amounts of money on the army, the Separatist army.
Yeah.
But they still have to keep everything on a budget so that they can spend that much money and so that they can spend it effectively and get their numbers. Like, I don't know.
What does the Separatist army...
What's a good...
Like, what does the Separatist alliance spend any other money on? Capes for Dooku?
Okay.
Like,
Pajamas. No, they spend it on his pajamas.
They spend it on his pajamas.
The exquisite silk
pajamas.
embroidered pajamas.
Like, seriously, what do they spend any money on? Because what are they besides just a military state?
That's a good question. Like, I guess we never really see behind the curtain, but look at the separatist Senate. Like, presumably they have a civil government as well. Presumably
the civil government gets paid.
Yeah, presumably
Not
they have a
that much,
bureaucracy.
though, I wouldn't say.
Well, they probably have to provide services. Like, we have no idea what the state of governments really are in Star Wars in terms of, like, do they, like, build roads? Do they provide water and stuff?
Yeah.
Like, it seems like Star Wars is, like, very, very, very laissez-faire compared to, like, the United States or most countries on our universe, our reality. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But sure, there's got to be some stuff.
Yeah. Let's see. By the way, when they're preparing the AAT to use it against the cannon, there's that line, this requires a woman's touch. And Saw goes, I was just about to do that. And Steela goes, sure you were. The chemistry between Saw and Steela is, like, completely and utterly underrated in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted more of it because I just wanted, like, the death to hurt Saw a little bit more.
I love, like, all the brother-sister, like, team-ups in or whenever siblings, I guess. Whenever siblings in general in Star Wars get to team up, it doesn't happen a lot, but it's pretty awesome.
Also, so is Terrifying Tales. I tweeted about this the other day. If you've not watched Terrifying Tales, Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales, get on it because it's great. Let's see. Also, that sonic explosion, the sound design for that, just chef's kiss.
Yeah,
absolutely. Great stuff. I love creative sound design in Star Wars. Ahsoka. Remember what I told you about staying focused? Anakin says as the new girlfriend of her ex is being praised relentlessly. Dude, if Rush Clovis was being praised in front of you with Padme in his arms, you would be singing a far different tune, my friend.
Yeah.
Just so...
The whole, like, love triangle or whatever thing that they're trying to push here is so confusing to me.
It is confusing.
It's
one of the things I wish was honestly gone from the arc.
I just don't like it when... I think Star Wars, and I don't really like it usually when Star Wars in general tries to tackle romance, but especially not the animated shows. Just really feels out of place and kind of... It feels strange to me the way it's all laid out. And it kind of makes sense more when it's like the existing... I mean, I guess Satine and Obi-Wan maybe are the exception. Like, they have an interesting, compelling dynamic, which I really can't say for Ahsoka and Lux.
No.
Or Lux and Steela.
Actually, Lux and Steela I like, but whatever.
Still don't. And there's a part at the end of the episode where, who is it? Like Saw picks up,
Steela and twirls her around?
Saw picks up Steela and twirls her around, and then, like... Oh, gosh, I'm forgetting the names now. Saw picks up... I'm blanking on the names, but yeah, Saw picks up Steela and, like, whirls her around, and they're like, woo, we're so happy. We did it. We knocked out the power grid. And then Lux looks super sad. He's, like, looking on, and he's looking really sad. And it seems like he's sad because, like, Steela, but then... It's Steela and Saw, like they're siblings, so the whole thing is just that part feels like a continuity error or something.
It was them trying to shoehorn in a reference.
What were they trying to reference?
Supposed to be a reference to Leia and Han on Endor.
Oh, it was. Oh, it's like, Han,
look,
you silly goose.
No.
He's my brother.
There's even the line at the end of the episode. He's my brother, literally verbatim. I'm sure Luke wasn't all that thing when it blew. You love him. Don't worry, when he's back, I won't get in the way. No, it's not like that. He's my brother. I think it was a deliberate throwback to that. I think it was a little too much shoehorned in.
So does that mean that the is Saw not supposed to know that they're siblings or something?
No, I think Lux is not supposed to know that they're siblings for some reason.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I meant Lux.
Yeah.
That's so strange.
It's so weird. Doesn't really make sense. The only thing I can think of is that, like, Lux hasn't been with them for so long, for too long.
And we're operating off the assumption that he looks sad in that scene because he thinks that Lux is or he thinks that Saw is trying to, like, steal Steela from him, despite the fact because that they're brothers and sisters, but, like, there was no other. What other possible explanation for him is, like, inexplicably, like, looking dismayed?
Let's talk about this call with King Rash and Dooku, which is just so funny to me. I love this so much. So, first of all, Rash called Dooku. We're automatically flipping the script. All of Dooku's henchmen in the Clone Wars never want to get a call from this guy. But Rash is calling him. I wrote in my notes, this scene reads to me like Dooku saying, Sanjay, a call from me is what most of my lackeys beg and pray not to have. What is actually wrong with you? Yeah, also, by the way, let's just clap it up for a second for King Rash for his incredible, ingenious, Thrawn-like strategy of blaming Count Dooku for his own failures to keep the rebels in check.
To his face.
That was a very good decision. Definitely even better when you consider that Dooku could force choke him from halfway across the galaxy. What is this guy's problem? Oh, I wanted to do one more thing. Dooku's introduction of Kalani. I don't know if you caught this. I think this was a reference. I'm not sure. This is at least my interpretation of a reference. This is the super tactical droid Kalani. This is my apprentice, Darth Maul. He will succeed where you have failed. He will find your lost ship.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I feel like it's a reference to Phantom Menace.
Dude, Dooku hypes up Kalani the way Apple hypes up the new iPhone when it comes out. They're like, oh, those old tactical droids? Pfft, no, they're garbage now. What you really want is a super tactical droid. And I'm actually sending you one. Look at you. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, I love super tactical droids, by the way. We'll see one in the D Squad arc later. And then we'll see Kalani in Rebels in what is one of my favorite episodes.
That's Kalani?
Oh, yeah, that's Kalani.
Oh, that is so cool.
When Dooku at the end of the arc says, I'm sending you to Agamar, Agamar is where the Rebels crew finds him.
No way. I totally missed that. It has been too long since I've watched Rebels, apparently.
It's one of the best connective threads in Star Wars television ever, period.
That's freaking awesome, dude.
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome.
Should we go on to the Soft War, which is, I'm going to spoil this one for you, my favorite episode of this arc.
All right.
In the Soft War, we meet the leader of Onderon's Royal Army, General Tandon. General Tandon is a little annoyed because Kalani has a lot of different stratagem than he would prefer to use for fighting the war against the insurgents. Meanwhile, Rash meets with Dendup yet again because he still doesn't believe that Dendup hasn't been ordering the rebels around, even though he has never met them in his life, and he should really know better, but he's just apparently an idiot, so he can't be trusted to do really anything that makes any moral or common sense. Anyway, they then hear that in Yolon Square, outside of the palace, the Separatists are planning to execute King Dendup for his crimes against the Separatist state of being the king of Onderon.
Yeah.
Whatever. Anyway,
they just want to execute him.
Yeah, they stage a rescue attempt. The rebels, and it only happens because Saw gets captured earlier and wins over the allegiance of General Tandon. General Tandon then backs up the rebels with the Onderon Royal Army, and eventually the people even help rally against the Separatists at a big public event. Then eventually Dendup is brought to a rebel safe house, and he expresses his pride over the actions of Steela, Lux, and Saw.
Yeah. Good summary. So the fortune cookie here is to seek...
Nope.
Wait, no. I read the wrong fortune cookie.
Yep.
Struggles often begin and end with the truth.
Pause right there. I gotta reference this other movie. Say it again.
Struggles often begin and end with the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
You want the truth? I think that's a good reference, because I think that the truth is kind of both sides kind of struggle with accepting the truth.
Oh,
especially
absolutely.
in this episode, but in this entire arc. The rebels, just obviously, Saw especially, they got some things they gotta work out. And then the King Rash, he's just delusional.
I like the idea of that you can't handle the truth from the movie A Few Good Men, because it's interesting, because the truth, like the idea that you can't handle the truth in that scene is no longer a dismissal, but it's a move of oppression. You aren't deserving enough to know the real truth. There's a lot of talk in this episode about who can handle the real truth and who can't, which I think is interesting. I gotta say, one of my favorite moral themes in this arc, in this episode specifically, is General Tandon and Kalani. There are these two strategical masterminds. One is a human, one's a droid, one can make actual choices and feel actual emotions, the other goes by the programming that he received. One is loyal to Onderon, the other is unshakably loyal to the Separatists. We have this facelessness with Kalani. Tandon is actually human. Tandon can actually feel things. But Kalani will never break away from the system because he is the system. I find it fascinating. I find it really interesting, the idea of Kalani and Tandon and the similarities and the differences between the two of them. Yeah. Also, let's talk about another scene from this palace scene, which is just incredible. I love this. This is one of the most unintentionally funny lines in Star Wars. I love this so much. So, there's a piece of information that's given by Tandon to Rash, and Kalani goes, "Why was I not told of this?" And Tandon goes, "You just were."
Yeah, that's...
It's a really dumb line. I don't know why.
So Rash asked that to Tandon?
No. Kalani asked that to Tandon. Why was I not told of this? So Tandon tells something to Rash. I forgot what it is. And then Kalani goes to Tandon, "Why was I not told of this?" And then Tandon says back, "You just were."
Yeah, I think that's...
The way it's delivered is so hilarious, I will never get over it.
I think that also, although it is pretty unintentionally funny, it also kind of... I think in that moment kind of illustrates the dynamic exactly of why Tandon ends up going back. Because it's kind of Tandon's frustration, and also, Kalani, kind of the separatist mindset of, like, we're coming in, we're in charge now, we gotta know everything, and then Tandon's kind of like, hey, hang on, you're kind of pissing me off a little bit. Like, you think you know everything, you think you want to be the big boss, but you're not actually from here, and I'm from here. Like, I'm the real deal. I'm from Onderon. Like, you better cool your jets,
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. Kalani makes Tandon think in a way I don't think he's ever really thought before.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, let's talk about the worst decision Rash makes in this entire arc. The public execution is maybe the worst tactical blunder I've ever seen.
Yeah. First of all,
in terms of controlling the message about who is the good guy and who's the bad guy, It is the worst idea he has ever had.
First of all, we are going to publicly execute a beloved king, a very popular and beloved king, and a vulnerable-looking old man king at that. Second of all, we're going to do it in public with evidently quite insufficient security, since it's very easy for the rebels to come in and rescue him.
Yeah. Also, that won't make him a martyr or anything.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what Ahsoka says.
Yeah. It's so, I can't believe that, like, there's a super tactical droid right there. He should have told you what a mistake this was. This was a huge mistake.
The super tactical droid, I think, to your point, that makes sense, though, in a way that Rash, in his, like, arrogance and lust for power, would kind of ignore the droid. If you're correct in assuming that the droid would probably be like, oh, according to my calculations, this is a terrible idea. According to my programming, you suck. You know?
According to my programming, eat shit.
Dude, like, Kalani just... That's the thing, like, Kalani probably... These super tactical droids, I feel so bad for them, because they probably put up with so much dumbassery, pardon my French, from all this... Because all the separatist leaders, time and again, we see all these separatist leaders whose downfall is their arrogance, and whose downfall is them kind of overreaching.
And he has a check on it right
and
here.
And he probably, like, all these super tactical droids... Like if they are as good at tactics as they are made out to be, they see all this coming from a mile away. Like Admiral Trench, the way he goes down in season 2. Season 2, Cat and Mouse. The way he goes down there. The way who's the Skakoan who gets captured on Ryloth?
Wattamor.
That's Wattam. I didn't realize it was Wattam.
Turned down for Watt.
The way turned down for Watt gets turned down. He had so many.
For Watt, exactly.
He had so many opportunities to leave Ryloth, having already plundered unimaginable
and people were
wealth.
Begging him to.
Yeah, like the entire, like all his forces were saying, like, dude, we gotta leave, and he says no because he wants to wait for one more bit of, like, one more cart full of treasure or whatever.
Including the Ark from Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, including when he already could have made out like a bandit.
Yeah,
and
maybe he was going to use the Ark because nobody would know not to look at it, and maybe he was going to use the Ark against the Twi'lek. So
hey, check this out.
Boom!
It just melts.
Yeah. By the way. Purpose must come before feelings. I got a new definition of this. I got a new meaning of this. I no longer actually think it's a bad, I realized in this episode, I no longer think it's a bad, request. I think it's just poorly phrased. Because I realized one of the morals of this arc is that the intensity of war can sometimes cause tunnel vision and cause people to do really dumb things. But the best leaders are the ones who can see the bigger picture. Steela, Ahsoka. Look, there is even a line in a Rebels trailer and in the Rebels episode Steps into Shadow. After the first 2 seasons of Star Wars Rebels, villains couldn't get their shit together, Governor Price says, I need someone who sees a bigger picture.
Yeah. And
that's how we got ya blue guy, dabba dee, dabba die, Grand Admiral Thrawn. Yeah. Purpose must come before feelings. Don't focus on so much on the little details. It's the big picture you need. Which also is actually a really good guide on how to view Star Wars stuff, honestly. You know, like, how does this work in Star Wars? Star Wars is about the why, not the how. Don't get tunnel vision.
Yeah.
Great line. When Saw is captured by Tandon, Tandon goes, aligning yourself with the past does not bode well for your future. Wait for it. Let the past die. Kill it, if you have to.
Yeah.
The same line, and they're both said by villains. Just saying.
Yeah. I think a lot of villains not just in Star Wars, but in all sorts of things, a lot of villains are like, oh, get with the times, and then it's always like, oh no, you win because of the power of friendship and actually valuing people and things of real value.
Absolutely.
And not just power and money, which is usually what either power or money is usually what, like, kind of the whole, like, get with the times, get out of the past, progress, must keep moving forward. Like, that's all a euphemism for money and power, and this is no exception, I think.
Absolutely.
Sorry, that was, like, super random, but I just thought of that.
No, it's absolutely correct. I agree with that. What was I gonna say? Damn it. Yeah, no, I'm a real sucker for characters switching sides, especially from villains to heroes.
Yeah.
And that is why I love General Tannen's arc in this episode so much, because you can totally see it coming. It's telegraphed to you, and yet it still feels so darn good when he steps down there and says, "The only snake I see, sire, is you."
I think what makes it good is that there is that build-up.
Absolutely.
I think that's often what makes it good, is that, I mean, in this, sometimes it's little hints, sometimes like this, it's very obvious, is that we get to see him kind of change, or not really change, but we get to see him kind of reason his way and feel his way to the conclusion that he needs to switch sides.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Let's see what else. I also like this reveal here that Dendup didn't choose a side in the war, so it was chosen for him. And it's interesting that Saw flips the script on that decision. That decision is made by Dendup out to be a cowardly decision. But by Saw, it's made out to be a noble decision. The Separatists took over Onderon because we let them. Basically, Dendup was trying to keep his people out of the war, but it's the people of Onderon's fault for letting the Separatists take over. We could have done more. And it's an interesting defense of Dendup and an idea that I never really considered. Let's get to tipping points.
Tipping points. Here
at the
we
beginning
go.
of tipping points, King Dendup addresses the Onderonian public through holograms. Very similar to that first episode. To the third episode, that is. We see the new Rebels mountain base in the Highlands. Dendup appoints Steela as commander of the military. Steela and Lux get together a little bit. And then the fight begins in the Highlands against the droids. The droids operate these new HMP gunships. If you ever played Star Wars Force Arena, they were a really good AoE card that you could use. By the way, pour one out for Star Wars Force Arena.
Rip Star Wars Force Arena.
Rip Star Wars Force Arena!
One of the many Star Wars mobile games that has gone too soon.
Absolutely, 100%. They stand no match against the HMP gunships. Anakin and Obi-Wan ask themselves who in the galaxy is running around with an extra batch of missiles. And then they figure it out. My friends! So they go to Hondo, and Hondo delivers missiles. And there's a long fight. And then Steela, precious Steela, is hit by a crashed HMP gunship and dies when a cannon shoots Ahsoka, causing her to lose her force grip on her and letting her fall to her death. The arc ends with the joint celebration of Onderon's freedom from the Separatists and the funeral of Saw Gerrera, which pushes Saw as far into insanity as he can possibly go, setting up his arcs in Star Wars Rebels and in Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. By the way, did you know his last words on Jedi were Steela?
That is only in the
novelization.
The novelization.
But still,
it's not in the
movie. No, it would have been so cool if it was in the movie.
It also would have made no sense though, because
say
a lot of the half the people, exactly. It's one of the things where half the people Like, half the people are probably like, oh my gosh, oh wow, oh, that's so cool, oh,
And half
whoa,
the
that
people
really
are like,
hits.
What the frick?
Half the people are just like,
Who?
what?
Where?
What's a Steela? What am I looking at? Yeah.
Fortune cookie is disobedience is a demand for change.
That's definitely true.
Yeah, there's not really much more to this, honestly. Like, yeah, you're not disobedient. No one can be disobedient and satisfied. Like, this is a fortune cookie for the arc more than the episode, honestly.
I think at least in this episode, the people are definitely on board for the rebellion at this point.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Like, they're actually on the side of the.
Also, by the way,
make no mistake at this
let's
point.
just talk about battle droids firing on Onderonian citizens.
Yeah.
One of them smashed a fruit on their head, and automatically they just start attacking everybody. I'm like, do you realize the kind of shit that Rash would take for just blatant war crimes? I'm not saying the Republic is innocent. The Republic is clearly not innocent because gestures to all the war crimes that the Jedi commit, but whatever. Steela tells Saw, we all want victories, but not at the cost of innocent lives.
Yeah.
Right, Saw? Right?
Right,
Remember
Saw?
innocent lives? Inusagi remembers Saw. Pepperidge Farms remembers Saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, what would Steela have thought of Inusagi? Spoiler, she would have hated it.
Yeah.
She would have never known the use of flechette launchers on innocent civilians. I also just realized that we all want victory, but not at the cost of innocent lives could also be foreshadowing for her death.
Yeah.
Just gonna let that sit for a second.
There was not a lot I liked about this arc. Hondo, it's always nice to see Hondo pop up every now and then. He's like one of those. He's just one of those people who pops back in now and again. You're like, oh wait, it's Hondo. So I small galaxy syndrome probably.
Yeah.
But who cares?
Also,
it's Hondo.
Also,
I'll gladly make excuses for Hondo.
Also, what if I needed weapons transported illegally? Illegally!
Dude, it's Hondo. Come on. Gotta love him.
Also, by the way, where are the currency exchanges in the galaxy? He once again says non-Republic credits. Have the Jedi not learned their lesson about currency exchanges from Tatooine?
Yeah, they really have. They gotta get some whoopee or something.
Yeah, or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, fill in the blank for me. This is a little Star Wars trivia. Just blank fleet systems. You'll know this.
Okay, I feel like there's a couple Bactoid fleet systems.
Not that one.
Not Bactoid.
It begins with the letter S.
Sinar fleet systems.
There we go. Hondo pronounces it Cyanar in this episode.
Ooh,
I've always pronounced it Cyanar. Is this another Wizel?
No, cause I feel like there's legitimately. I feel like this is. Yeah, because I think it should be Sinar because they say Sinar in Rebels when they're talking about in the Empire Day episode they present the TIE Advanced with Baron Valen Rudor.
Apparently there's no established pronunciation. That's stupid. Okay, cool. Welcome to Star Wars, everybody. Anyway. Let's see. Yeah. Also, this is a fun line. When Ahsoka's calling Anakin and Obi-Wan on Onderon, from Onderon.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan says, even Master Windu would be wary at this point.
Yeah.
I'm like, even Master Windu? Master Windu doesn't need an excuse to be wary. He's constantly wary. What are you talking about, Obi-Wan? This is Mace Windu you're talking about. The guy who makes it his life mission to constantly be wary of everything. And then, of course... I didn't want to get here, but... Steela dies. Steela bites it.
Rip.
Yeah.
It was very suspenseful, but it kind of. I honestly thought it was over dramatic. I don't know. It didn't quite land with me.
That's fair. Yeah. I also, a final quote I'd like to reference from this episode. It's like you once said, many lives get caught between the Republic and the Separatists. Ahsoka is finally opening up her opinions on the galaxy and not just saying whatever the Jedi want her to say. This is, in my opinion, the beginning of her realization that the Jedi may not be all they're cracked up to be.
Interesting.
That's just my opinion, though, of course. Okay, what's your thought about this arc as a whole?
My thoughts about this arc as a whole, I'm not a fan. I am not a fan overall. I think, to me, it just felt like a slog. I think it really, really, really did not have to be 4 episodes. They totally could have fitted into 3, maybe even 2, if they really wanted to. I just thought overall, it just didn't really have a lot going for it. I thought, I just thought a lot of the characters just felt kind of off. None of the chemistry really worked. Wasn't really a fan of the dialogue. The visuals were nothing special. So overall, yeah, it just was kind of it just felt like kind of a struggle. I wasn't really a fan of it, I'd say. It did have some bright spots. Like it's not all doom and gloom for me, but definitely probably some of my least favorite episodes of the Clone Wars. I hate to say it.
So I don't think you're going to be surprised about this because I've been alluding to this all along. These are some of my favorite episodes of the Clone Wars. This arc is... I love the themes about choice, and I love the revolutionary feel about it, and I love the boots on the ground feel. I don't like the boots on the ground feel generally in Star Wars, but this one is just one that really does it for me for some reason. This is my favorite arc in Season 5.
Oh, wow.
I'm saying it. This is my favorite arc in Season 5. I think, technically, story-wise speaking, I think probably the Maul arc at the end of 5 is better, but I like this better. So, yeah, I like Onderon. I love our introductions to Saw, and I love our introductions to Steela, and I love a lot about this arc, and this is one of my favorites. This is up there with Mon Calamari for me, honestly. Yeah. How would you rank these?
That's an interesting question because I think for me, I feel like part of what makes this feel to me kind of interminable a little bit is that there's no real clear distinction between any of the episodes in the what they tackle. It just kind of feels like it was randomly chopped up and divided up kind of at random. But I would probably say number 1 tipping points, number 2 front runners, number 3 the soft war, and number 4 a war on 2 fronts.
For me, it would be the soft war at the top, then tipping points, then a war on 2 fronts, then front runners myself.
Interesting.
But yeah, no, I think but they work the best as an arc. I do agree with that.
Yeah.
You ready to get into everybody's favorite part of Star Wars?
Everybody's favorite part. Let's do it.
What you've brought me today is worth 1/4 portion. As is our routine every episode until that live stream that Alberto has invited us on from Star Wars Radio Rebellion. We're going to do 5 Star Wars trivia questions for each other.
Get some warm-ups going.
We were getting ready. We got some fearsome opponents, and we got to do some prepping. Okay, you want to go first with your first question?
Yes. How many lightsabers can be seen in the original trilogy?
4.
Yes, that is correct.
Yes.
There is, in order of appearance, Obi-Wan's lightsaber. Obi-Wan's lightsaber, Vader's lightsaber, Luke's lightsaber, and Luke 2.0 lightsaber. Luke's lightsaber 2.0. That would be the correct way to say it.
Here's a fun one. How many lightsabers can you see in original trilogy era Star Wars movies?
Original trilogy era Star Wars movies.
This is not like one of mine, I'm just saying.
So would that include Rogue One and Solo, or?
And maybe something else. Think about stuff that takes place in the original trilogy era.
I thought you said movies.
Yeah, there could be original trilogy. I'll just reveal it to you. By the way,
because I don't know what the parameters are like. If you're talking about comic books as well,
no, I'm saying just in movies. I'm just saying just in movies.
Oh,
6.
Yeah.
The 4 from before, Maul and Solo, and Leia's lightsaber in the Rise of Skywalker flashback, which takes place about a year after Return of the Jedi.
Oh, very clever. Clever.
Yeah.
Although technically it's not in an original trilogy era movie, so that is debatable, but I like it. I'll accept it. All right.
What type of blaster does Boba Fett use in The Empire Strikes Back?
I believe it is an E3 carbine rifle.
Very, very close. That would be an EE3 carbine rifle.
The extra E. Oh man. Wow, that's close. EE3. All right. Nice. All right, you ready? You want me to hit you with another one?
Absolutely.
What is the name of Lando's co-pilot in Return of the Jedi?
That would be 9-Num.
Yes, not 10-Num, 9-Num.
Who's a pilot, right? 10-Num's a pilot.
Yes, they're both pilots, and they're both
10-Num's an alien pilot, right? Yeah.
They're both from the planet Sullust, so they're Celestians.
Yeah. This is probably the most difficult of all of my. After he absorbs Rey and Ben's life forces, how long does Palpatine say it has been since a dyad has been seen? A dyad in the Force, unseen for...
I'm gonna go with 1,000 years.
That would be generations.
Generations. Okay, I'll take it.
Go with your third one.
I will accept that. Who is the only actor of a major character to appear in all 9 trilogy movies?
That would be Anthony Daniels.
Yes, Anthony Daniels, C-3PO. He actually appears in 10 movies because he also appears in Solo.
As Tack.
He just doesn't appear in Rogue One.
Yeah. No, he actually does.
He does?
Oh, Scaff! I can't believe them. He appears in 10 movies as C-3PO. The 11th he appears as Tack.
Wow, okay. Because he was not on Wikipedia, it did not credit him for Rogue One, so...
I think he was uncredited in the movie, but he made that cameo in
Wow. You learn something new. You learn something new every day.
How many systems does Dr. Cornelius Evazan have the death sentence on?
Gosh, I should know this. 12 systems?
12 systems.
Yeah, close enough.
No, I count that as right. It doesn't 12, so yeah, go ahead with your fourth one.
According to C-3PO, what are the odds of successfully navigating an asteroid field?
That would be 3,720 to 1.
Ding,
Never
ding, ding.
tell me the odds.
Yes.
Never
told me the odds.
What is the name of the Wookiee city that Master Yoda helps defend against the Separatists in the Battle of Kashyyyk?
That would be Karchiro, I believe.
Very close, Kachiro.
Kachiro. I forget. Yeah, these pronunciations mess me up.
Yeah.
I'll take it though.
No, close enough.
Take it though.
What's your last one? Okay.
Who is the first person in Star Wars to say it's a trap? In terms of when the movies were made chronologically.
That'd be Leia.
Yes, it is not actually Akbar. He gets all the credit, but Leia says it in Empire Strikes Back. Leia says it in Empire Strikes Back.
And finally, from my
April showers May flowers, and May gets all the credit.
Yeah. What is the name of General Hux's flagship in The Force Awakens?
Ooh, I should know this. General Hux's flagship. Probably wrong, but is it the Invincible?
It is the Finalizer.
Ah, the Finalizer. Right. All right, yeah. I remember now.
That was fun. That's going to be it for this episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy, watching all the stars we can get our hands on. Next week, we're going to do a special episode of some kind. We're still deliberating as to what that'll be, but we're going to be releasing a special episode of some kind. This is supposed to be for the end of Season 7, but due to some scheduling difficulties, we had to do it at the beginning of Season 8. Thank you for listening to this episode of Star Wars in a Galaxy. You can follow us on Twitter at In a Galaxy Pod. You can follow us on Instagram at Star Wars in a Galaxy. You can listen to us Anchor, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Wherever you listen to your podcast, we'll be there. If we're not, let us know. Speaking of letting us know, please email us, slbinagalaxy@gmail.com. Share your thoughts, your hot takes, your 6 degrees of Star Wars, your trivia questions. Anything that you want to share with us, please do. Our next episode is actually going to come out next week. We do have time to record next week, so it will come out next week. Then I guess the only thing left to say is may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.